one because we've got Cleveland Guardians baseball with the possibility of them knocking out the New York Yankees by the time we go to bed tonight. But welcome to the Cleveland Browns Instant React for Week 6. I am your host, Jim Crinitti. I hope everyone had a great weekend. For those of you who missed out, the Wise Guys Sports Show 1-year anniversary was back on Friday night. Go check that out on our brand new YouTube channel, and also you'll be able to find it here on the JC24 Sports Note where it was simulcast, and hope you guys enjoy watching that as much as we did making it. We had a predominantly 4-person panel that night. We brought on a friend from high school that you guys haven't met before. Alex from Row 7 was on, and then also Mike and myself. Some new graphics. It had actually a soundboard that I actually had a little too much fun with, but it was a good time had by all. Let's get right into this here because the Guardians and the Yankees have just started. As you'll see, the Patriots basically had their way with the Browns 38-15. Loss drops the Browns to 2-4. They'll be on the road at Baltimore. New England now evens their record at 3-3, and they'll be hosting the Chicago Bears next Monday night. And quite honestly, we'll talk about two teams going in completely separate directions. The Patriots are more than likely going to win that to get over 500, and the Browns slide is going to continue. Over the course of the next few weeks, the Cleveland Browns are going to end up playing. Naturally, they'll be in Baltimore next week. Then they will get the Bengals on Halloween night back home, which will be Monday night, and then they will be at the Miami Dolphins, home to the Buffalo Bills, at Tampa Bay before Deshaun Watson returns December 4th against the Texans. Outside of the Dolphins, none of those games are winnable. So this is going to be a lot worse before it gets better. And quite honestly, you guys know my feelings about where this franchise is right now, the stupid decisions that they've made. And quite honestly, trading for a guy that put them in this position to begin with. So I have absolutely zero sympathy for this team right now. We're going to throw some of the stats up down here below. As you can see, Zappe, the reserve quarterback for New England, who's filling a gap for Mac Jones, had himself a very good game, throwing for over 300 yards, had a couple of touchdowns in this one. You'll see it right there, 24 of 34 for 309, 2 touchdowns, and 118 quarterback rating, whereas Jacoby Brissett really could not get any kind of consistency for most of the day. 21 of 45, 266 yards, a touchdown, 2 key interceptions, and only had a quarterback rating of 54.5. The Browns really could not click on offense all day long. It was just a team completely out of sync. It's almost like you looked at the Browns, and you could tell as early as the first quarter that this franchise was almost in give-up mode. They were missing Denzel Ward due to injury. They were missing Jadeveon Clowney for the second or third straight game due to injury. Myles Garrett got hurt late in this one. They really had next to no continuity from the get-go. Tried to get cute with the play calling down in the red zone on the opening drive, had to settle for a field goal. And then New England, again, it was a little back and forth there for most of the first half, a very boring first half, if let's be completely honest. Stevenson, the primary running back for New England, as you'll see here in a second, 19 carries, 76 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He had one of those touchdowns in the first half. The other one naturally in the second half. The one in the second half was basically meaningless at that point. We'll cover that here in just a moment. But with the Browns, Nick Chubb, 12 carries, 56 yards for the best running back in football. I knew something was cursed when CBS threw up the graphic with Kevin Harlan in the booth showing that Nick Chubb, with the minimum number of carries that he has in his career, has a bigger yards per carry average than Barry Sanders and Jim Brown. You knew and Priest Holmes. So he's on pace right now to have the highest yards per game average, yards per carry average in NFL history. If he were to retire right now, he'd actually have that, and he'd also sit in the top 5 in the Browns' all-time rushing list. With some of the greats that they've had over the years. But this was a train wreck in the entire second half. The Patriots led at the half. It was a 10-6 game, and then New England just woke up, decided, hey, we're New England. We're not the New England that we used to be, but we're still playing the Browns that are here now. This is not the Browns that were competitive the last few years. This is a team who, as we all know, sacrificed their entire future to win now, and cannot do that because the guy that they sacrificed it for is sitting home for another 6 weeks. The both teams had their struggles in the first half. And the late yardage efficiency, as you can see here, the Browns were only 4 of 15 on third down. New England was 7 of 14. New England did not need to go for it on fourth down. The Browns were 3 of 5 on fourth down. New England had a season high in penalties. As a matter of fact, they actually achieved that in the first half. I think their high for penalties in their first 4 games, in their first 5 games to that point, I want to say was 6. And I think they already had 8 penalties before the 2-minute warning in the first half, which Coach Belichick certainly would not have been happy about. But none of them really kind of came back to bite the Browns, because the Browns always ended up helping out New England. As you'll see here in just a second, when the Browns stat line scrolls back through, the Browns had 4 turnovers in this game. Brissett had 2 interceptions, and then the Browns had a fumble in the third quarter, and then coughed up a punt return in the fourth quarter that put New England in perfect position to ice the game. The Browns got it as close as 24-15, had a little bit of momentum coming their way, and muffed a punt. New England went in and scored, and then the Browns actually still had a window of opportunity with about 8 minutes to go when they cut it to 24-15, seemed to have recovered the onside kick, and then right as D'Ernest Johnson seemed to recover the ball, another player from the Browns stepped out of bounds and touched the ball, making it not only meaning that the recovery was null and void, handing the ball to New England, and then they went back and looked at it, and it's technically a kick out of bounds, which they tacked 5 yards on the end of it as well. Even though the ball had already traveled 10 yards, a Browns player had touched the ball while standing out of bounds, which is, again, a legal procedure. It is technically a kick out of bounds. Remember, the NFL had a rule in place that was exploited by the Packers a number of years ago, where if a ball was dying within the 5-yard line, the Packers player would go out of bounds, touch the ball, it would consider the ball dead, and then they actually would consider that a kick out of bounds, and the Packers would get the ball at the 40-yard line. The Packers exploited that twice in the same season by Randall Cobb, and then the NFL went back and closed that loophole. But this was still a backbreaker for the Browns, because my dad and I, were at a family member's house watching this, and we're looking at it thinking, okay, the Browns may still have time to come back, and we were joking because we knew that there was absolutely no way in hell that was going to happen. But then we're thinking, I'm looking right at my dad, and it's like, you think they can hang 40? You think there's still enough time for them to hang 40? There's 6 minutes to go. And sure enough, they hung 38, and quite honestly could have hung 40 if they wanted to. But Bill is not the kind of coach to run up the score or showboat. He's just, the kind of coach who will actually break every other rule and then scream about it when it kind of comes back in his face, a la remember what happened in the playoff game a number of years ago to the Titans, where his own rule about like rolling the clock late in the game and not calling the timeout or taking the intentional delay of game and everything was exploited. But I digress. Let's get back to what we're all here for right now, and that's the fact that the Browns are absolutely atrocious. This is a train wreck. It's not getting any better whatsoever, and it's going to get a lot worse. Myles Garrett also left the game in the fourth quarter after having a sack, and congratulations to Myles for setting the Browns all-time sack record now with 63 and a half. He had 1.5 sacks on the day, had a strip sack on one of those, and but again, left the game in the fourth quarter with an apparent arm or shoulder injury, was down on the field for a moment or two, came back. You could definitely tell he's not 100%. He's dramatically struggling still. He is still the most double-teamed defensive player in all of football, even more than Aaron Donald. But Garrett's going to need a little bit of time to get healthy, and the Browns have absolutely is as all over the place as the Baltimore Ravens are right now, with the fact that the Ravens are sitting 3-3, should have actually run away with this division at the early part of the season with how their schedule kind of shaped up, and lost to the Giants today. Their play calling, cost them a game against the Bills. They lost to the Dolphins earlier this year. Baltimore's 3 wins, kind of quasi preview of next week. Opening win against the Jets, winning on the road against the Patriots, and then beating the Bengals. Decent caliber right there. And for Baltimore, now their schedule seems to open up a little bit because they get the Browns, they'll be at the Bucks, they will be at the Saints, they host the Panthers, at the Jaguars. So in there, the game in Tampa Bay might be their only struggle. The Ravens have a legit chance to have, by the time Deshaun Watson would come back for the stretch drive, they could actually go on a 4 out of 5 run here and take that 3-3 and turn it easily into a 7-4 run. Come Thanksgiving. But for what was supposed to be the best division in football, the AFC North is really turning into a mess. The Bengals are certainly hungover from last year, playing well above their average. The Browns, as we know, are the Browns. The Browns are now back to being a laughingstock. The Steelers right now are in a rebuild for the first time in many of our lifetimes, especially for our younger audience out there. And going through a rookie quarterback. And then you've got the Ravens, as we just talked about right now, who have the best running back who can throw in football in Lamar Jackson, and not to take anything away from, Jackson's abilities, but, there's a reason why if you force Lamar Jackson to throw instead of allow him to run, you have a much, much better chance of beating the Ravens every single time. But getting back to today's game, the Patriots had 399 yards of total offense. The Browns 328. Patriots averaged 6.1 yards per play. The Browns were 4.9. The 2 interceptions by Brissett. The fact that the Browns as a team only had 70 yards rushing when you've got the best backfield combination in football, and the fact that between Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, they only touched the ball 16 times out of the backfield. 16 times. Jacoby Brissett had more receptions than Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb had combined touches. Chubb's longest run of the day was 18. Kareem's was 9. The Browns did actually seem to wear down a little bit, wear the Patriots front 7 down a little bit to where they could actually run the ball a little bit more efficiently towards the end of the first half and starting in the second half. But by then they were already starting to trail 17-6 after the first drive of the second half, and knew we're going to be able to put the ball in the air a lot more. Brissett did actually have of those 21 receptions, he did complete those to 9 different receivers. He had Donovan Peoples-Jones had 4, David Njoku had 3, Amari Cooper, who was absolutely silent in the first half, had 4 catches in the second half. Pharaoh Brown, newly acquired and newly signed with a pair of catches. Harrison Bryant had 3 catches. Michael Woods, Nick Chubb, and David Bell all had a catch, and Dearness Johnson had 2 in mop-up time. Bailey Zappi, with the way that he's playing since Mac Jones went out for injury, you could see almost a scenario where Bailey Zappi, if the Patriots get hot and he continues to play well, that Mac Jones may kind of sit on the bench a little bit, because we all know that Bill, even though he's fiercely loyal to the guys who got him to the dance, Mac Jones is a very young quarterback, as is Bailey Zappi, but Mac Jones is not an all-world talent, especially after that rookie season. But they don't owe him anything. If Bailey Zappi gives you a better chance to win, absolutely, Belichick is going to stay with Bailey Zappi. And especially even if Mac Jones comes back and struggles, I could see a scenario where rather than actually play through it, if New England is still maybe in that wild card picture, towards the middle of November and further, that he could actually pull the string and go to Bailey Zappi. And so we've seen how some of the reserves have done when stars have been out. We've seen what's going on with Dallas right now with Dak Prescott being out. The Cowboys are 4-0 since then. Bailey Zappi has actually played very well for New England, whereas, in Cleveland, Jacoby Brissett, you want him to be able to try and manage the game. And quite honestly, 3 times this year, 3 of the Browns' 4 losses, he's actually thrown – he's not been able to protect the ball. He's either thrown very late interceptions as drive killers, or today he couldn't hang out of the ball properly. He threw an interception on the Browns' first offensive drive. It was their second or third play from scrimmage, and decided to go deep. And I mean, at the very worst, it was almost like a punt because it flipped the field for position, but you still gave the ball up, and that could have actually shifted the entire momentum of the entire afternoon. But instead, they had a fantastic shot. CBS did from overhead with either a drone or a blimp or something like that, or however they do their cameras anymore, where right after the Patriots went up by 3 scores, there were hordes of fans out on the bridge that you walk to coming in or out of First Energy Stadium. There were more people on that bridge than were left in the stands, and probably about 50% of those people that were still left in the stands at that point were Patriot fans. And I cannot stand the New England Patriots for the life of me. They are my least favorite team outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're my least favorite team in the National Football League. They are in the top 5 of all sports teams, college or pro, that I hate. The Steelers right now are number 3. Number 2 are the Chicago Blackhawks. Number 1 are the Ohio State Buckeyes. But it's the idea of, I felt bad, not for the Browns, not for their fans, because there were 68,000 people who went down to that stadium, and probably anywhere between 60 and 65,000 of those fans were clad in orange and brown, and you voluntarily paid money to watch that shit today. And you are voluntarily paying money to support this team with everything that they've done to ruin it in the last 8 months. So quite honestly, you deserve all of this. With the fans started to boo as early as the second quarter, and it got really loud and really vocal early in the fourth quarter when New England completely took over the game. To make matters even worse, if you're a Browns fan, look at that. with the win. If you combine regular and postseason, Bill Belichick moves into second on the all-time NFL's winning list at 324 wins. He is now 11-2 against the Browns since he was fired as their head coach in 1995 by Art Modell. You could actually say he got fired. Some people say he didn't want to make the move, to Baltimore and everything. But those 324 wins, he is now just 23 victories combined, postseason and regular season behind Don Shula. I don't see New England in a scenario where they're going to be as dominant as when Tom Brady was there, where they're going to be winning Super Bowls. But 25 wins, that's maybe 3 more years for him. You'd have to win 8 games a year, maybe get into a playoff here or there. At the worst, it's 4 more years. Bill Belichick right now is, and why did everything just kind of freeze on my end? Bill Belichick is 70 years old. Belichick would actually have to coach until probably 73 or 74 to be able to break Shula's record. He'll be his birthday is right before the NFL draft every year. How much more does Belichick want to do this? Does Bill want to run down Don Shula's record, considering he's got more rings than any? He's got more championship rings than any coach in history. He's been to the championship game, I want to say, probably more than any coach in history. Even that's including Paul Brown. But Belichick can kind of do whatever the hell he wants at this particular point. His son is now the defensive coordinator. He's got Matt Patricia back in the fold after his failed stint as head coach of the Lions. But whereas New England, again, starting to trend back up, possibly going on that 4 out of 5 run, New England could start to get themselves into a position in the wild card race. As the Bills just upset Kansas City. Thank you. At least something good comes out of this day. Because when I left, that game was just going to the fourth quarter, and Kansas City was leading by 3. So good on the Bills for getting the revenge. And the Yankees have already taken a 3-0 lead in the top of the going in the top of the second in Game 4 of that series. So. Let's go, Gardos. The Cavaliers start up 2 weeks from tonight, so at least this way we got something else to look forward to on Sundays to be able to take our mind off of really how abysmal the professional football team in the city of Cleveland is. So let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. Like and subscribe if you're interested, and I will be back with you guys next Sunday after the Browns probably get stomped by the Ravens, and we will be back with the Sports Note a little later on this week. We will hopefully have another Wise Guys show here before the end of the month, but we will absolutely get 2 in November. In addition to Mike has already guaranteed that I'm going to be on for the Ohio State Michigan preview this season, just like I was last year. But everyone take care. Enjoy the rest of your night. I got some baseball to go watch.